All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with only a few weeks to go in the regular season, who are the four best teams in college football? I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there that feel the same way that I do. But the Georgia Bulldogs are clearly the best team in college football, and they should reach the SEC championship game with an unblemished record. And right now, I'm going to keep them at my number one spot in the college football rankings. Number two, I'm going to go with Alabama. The Tide are right in the mix. They had a hard fought victory at home this past Saturday night against a very game LSU team. And I mean, if you watch that game, the Bayou Bengals basically threw everything but the kitchen sink at Alabama, going for fake punts, consistently going for the fourth down. I mean, they played their hearts out as a rivalry game. You know that, but nonetheless, Alabama was able to survive. But still, the Tide, they're not out of the woods yet. You look at that Iron Bowl in a couple of weeks with Auburn, as well as a potential meeting with Georgia in the SEC championship game, which are both going to be huge. Number three, I'm going to go with Oregon right now. The Ducks, they had a hard fought win in the rain this past Saturday night in Seattle against Washington. And the Ducks are still the class of the Pac 12, but their road game at Utah on November 20th is going to loom huge because Rice Eccles, can be a very tough place for opposing teams to play. Number four, I'm going to go with Ohio State. The Buckeyes, they've had consecutive hard fought wins, and that they've been able to put under their belt. A couple of weeks ago, they beat a game Penn State team at home. Last Saturday, we saw them go on the road to Lincoln in a very tightly contested battle with Nebraska. But if you're Ohio State, you're not out of the woods yet. You still got Purdue Saturday, and they are the spoiler makers at this point. Just ask Michigan State and Iowa about that contest with Michigan State could be a bad battle. And let's not forget the end of the season with Michigan. And if you're Ohio State and you survive that, you still got to go to the Big Ten title game. So the Buckeyes, they still have their work cut out for them. But those are the top four teams right now for me. But teams that are right in the mix. Number five, I'm going to go Cincinnati. The Bearcats, obviously, they need to keep on winning. It wasn't pretty Saturday against Tulsa, but nonetheless, Cincinnati won. They are looking at the possibility of facing either Houston or SMU in the American Championship game, which would be good for them because both Houston and SMU have good records right now. On top of that, Notre Dame keeps winning, and Notre Dame only has one loss. They're in the mix to try to make the college football playoff. And of course, Cincinnati has a win over Notre Dame at South Bend. So that is definitely going to help their cause. Number six, I'm going to go with Michigan. The Wolverines, in spite of losing to Michigan State a couple of weeks ago, they still control their destiny. Big game this Saturday against Penn State, of course. Still the big one with Ohio State at the end of the season and potentially winning getting to the Big Ten championship game for the first time in program history. And I will say this: if Michigan wins the Big Ten, you're going to have a hard time not getting them into the college football playoff. Right behind Michigan, a team that was obviously higher in the rankings last week, and that's Michigan State. The Spartans, they had a tough loss against Purdue at Purdue, but nonetheless, Purdue, again, they are the spoiler makers this year. And with that said, Michigan State is they're in the same boat as both Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan State, they still face Ohio State. They also have a big game with Penn State, and Penn State is going to have a big say in who wins the Big Ten East because they still play both Michigan and Michigan State. Number eight, I'm going to go with Oklahoma, and I know that the Sooners are undefeated and they are in a Power Five conference. They were off last week, so they got to sit back and see all of the craziness from last Saturday from their homes. But nonetheless, the Sooners still have some tough games ahead of them. And on top of that, the possibility of having to face Oklahoma State twice. That could be tough for the Sooners to do that in order to win the Big 12. Number nine, I'm going to go with Notre Dame. The Irish, they have a chance to win out. Saturday is going to be an interesting game at Virginia. but no conference championship game as Notre Dame is a football independent. That's going to hurt their case. So Notre Dame needs a lot to happen, and I mean a lot to happen, in order for them to move up in the next couple of weeks to get to one of those four spots. And finally, at number 10, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. Now, you look at the Cowboys, they only have one loss on their resume, and that's to a tough Iowa State team. But not only could Oklahoma State get to the college football playoff, they could also derail the chances of Oklahoma in the process. And if you're Oklahoma State, what better way to send your in-state rivals to the SEC in a couple of years than knocking them off of their perch as far as getting to the college football playoff? So obviously, there's still plenty of work, uh, ahead of a lot of these teams. This picture, if you will, is a far way from being clear. But I guarantee by between now and the end of the month, that picture is going to be a lot clearer. And the good thing about it, a lot of these teams still have games against one another. So it's not going to be a lot of scoreboard watching coming down the stretch. But right now, Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State, if the season ended today, as far as making that college football playoff. So we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.